I think that we can live without intention and purpose. And it's very easy to exist in the world and just move through it, right? We're moving through it no matter what. So I wake up, I do what I did yesterday. I'm just repeating these same steps. But to have a change, right? To work towards the best years of your life, that takes intention. That takes a decision. That takes responsibility. Toasty Cakes, welcome back to the American Glutton Podcast.
What's happening, bud? How you been?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing okay, man. I mean, it's been a little bit since we talked last time, and my favorite thing is when we talk, I know that it's always going to be a surprise, and I know that we're always going to try to find something new. Like usually you have like these experts on, these gurus, these doctors, and like I'm just a silly little guy, so excited to see what we get into.
You're not a silly little guy to me. I've known you for a long time, and we've had conversations many times, and now we're just having a conversation that other people are listening in on.
You know, just two guys, hopefully doing a little help for other people, which I love.
Yeah. The last time we talked, you were beginning a process.
That's true. That is correct.
Where has that gone? What's the evolution of that?
Yeah, man. So, to catch anyone up who missed it, we talked about 6 months ago, and I posted something on Instagram about Ozempic, and you replied to it, and kind of the question was, is that my path? Is that my future? Is that what I'm going to get into? And I said, I don't think so. I think I'm going to try something different. And so here we are. You know, like I used my own motivation. I kind of used my own style that I wanted to find, this thing in. And 6 months later, a lot's happened.
What has happened? Let's get into that. What's the nitty gritty? What have you done? What are you doing? And I also want to know if your feelings about Ozempic have changed.
My feelings then are my feelings now. And it's an excellent solution for a lot of people. I think it's helping a lot of people. And I have a lot of friends it's helping, and it's great for them. I just knew it wasn't for me because for me, the problem was in the foundation, like I built my house on some bricks, and it was just going to be burying those if I used this solution to get me there, because it wasn't going to address what's got me to this place before, what got me into this life. And I wanted to deal with that rather than just kind of like paper over it with, a Kickstarter.
Yeah. Well, okay. But let me ask one question about what you said. It's helping a lot of people I know. Are the people 24-year-old models who are trying to lose 2 pounds? Are those the type of people or people?
Everybody, I have a friend who jokes that like they should just be putting it in the water soon. If somebody wants to win that election in 2024, they need to run on that Ozempic for All campaign, because that's your ticket. I know it's LA, and I know that this is a bubble that I live in, but it's rare that I go to a party or I'm in like a social situation where there aren't people who are talking about it, who are on it. And that could be 24-year-old models who are just like scraping those last couple of pounds off to stay competitive in their game. That's morbidly obese people who are trying to get their life back, are trying to get some more longevity in their life. Everyone in between, and some of those people, I think that it's a healthy solution, and some of those people, I'm not here to judge what they're doing or why they're doing it.
But, no, and I don't want you to call. I'm not asking you to call anybody. I just want to know, like, I know you're a photographer. You're around. You're in the fashion industry a lot,
right?
And like my perception is like if it's in that industry, it's completely like that's not the purpose it was created for.
No, it wasn't created for that. And sometimes I do get a little sad when I talk to people and they're telling me they're on it and I should be on it. And, the funny joke is I picked the funniest time to change my life because I hit it right when everyone else was using the hack. And so it's like, I just decided to go the long way around it. But um, an interesting thing about me and what I'm doing is I've had some substantial changes, and I guess we'll get into that in a minute. Like I don't even own a scale. I don't know how much weight I've lost, but we have a mutual friend, and I'll text you guys together. And I guess there have been visual changes to me, and I
Huge,
think
massive visual changes.
thank you. And I'm still terrified to even acknowledge that I've lost a pound, which is part of our psychosis, maybe yours and mine. But I it's so funny because so many people are afraid to even acknowledge it to me. And I don't know if they're being polite. I don't know if they just don't know how to approach it. But like, I do know that I've talked to some people, and then I've talked to some people who are like, oh no, they just think you're on it. Like, I think people assume that I'm on Ozempic. And so they're just afraid to even acknowledge that I'm over here doing the work because, they don't want to call it out. And it's fine. Like, the biggest thing for me is I know that I'm doing it the way that I wanted to do it. And I don't care if everyone else thinks it. I don't care what anyone else thinks about me and my path. I'm happy, and I'm happy with how I'm doing it.
Okay. I listen, I hear you. I want to just say, because I will play the devil's advocate to just to defend people. I think because I've experienced that where I'm working really hard, I'm around people and nobody's saying anything, and it's almost like motherfuckers didn't say anything, but then I'd hear that they were all worried about me, and now when I'm doing something that's very evident and nobody's acknowledging it, it also feels weird. I've actually had to sit down with some of my friends and have this conversation, and for the most part, they would say like, "Well, we didn't know how fragile it was, and we didn't want to
Of
throw
course.
off your game," which is fair. Like there were lots of times, multiple times, where my friends would hold an intervention for me, and I would be shocked because I thought nobody knew I was doing drugs. Turns out everybody knew I was doing
Right.
drugs. And I'd go, okay, I'm going to get sober. And like a week in, three of them would be like, "We're really proud of you. We're so happy. We were so worried, and now you're doing great." And that'd be the night that I go and use drugs. And then they'd be like, "Why the fuck did we say anything?"
Yeah, which is, hilarious. And I mean, I just said to myself, like, I'm terrified to acknowledge that I'm making a change. So I know that there are people that love me in this world, and that's a lot to accept. I mean, I don't know if you ever had issues with that, but that's a lot for me to accept. And accepting that this life is mine, but also it's something that I'm here for other people is a lot to accept. And so I definitely have had that conversation with people who know that, they know that I'm on a path. They know how I'm doing what I'm doing, but they're like, yo, like, you're doing it and we don't want to acknowledge it because whatever it is, it's working. So like, it's kind of like, you don't want to jinx it or whatever.
Yeah.
And I feel that way myself. So I do not blame anyone else for feeling that way. And like I said, I'm also been such a dick about it in the past. Like I don't like being an activity book for people. I have my life, and I know we all have things to fix in our life, but like, I've been a little bit less than generous with people who have come into my life to offer support or to offer help or to try to quote unquote fix me. And so I think maybe they just see like, oh, he's doing it and it's working. So like, let's stay hands off for right now and just hope for the best.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, yeah. And look, when I see you, I'm nothing but you're going to be like, you're fucking killing it, because that's my perception. And I know that can be helpful too.
Yeah, and every once in a while, you don't need to say anything. Like, the change is evident. And so I just see how people look at me. Like, there's that thing, which I'm sure you've got before, which is sometimes people will be like, oh, hey, did you lose a little bit of weight? Oh, it looks like you lost a little bit of weight. And that's one reaction. But then when you actually hit it, people like see you and they're like, what the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
people come at you with that, like, yo, you're different. And it's a completely different vibe. And a lot of times people will say that with their eyes, and it is what it is. But again, like, it's, I never wanted to do this so that I could wear a more fashionable pair of pants. I never wanted to do it so I could look a better way. Like I wanted to do it to get my life back. I wanted to do it to get a life that I, quite frankly, never had or haven't had for a really long time. And so, it doesn't matter who acknowledges it along the way. I'm really happy with where I'm going, and I'm like very optimistic about where I'm going right now.
Yeah. What are you doing?
Good question. I mean, again, it's so hands off. Like I said, I don't even own a scale. Like my scale so far, like I've sent, I have you and our mutual friend on a text, and like my scale is I've got a stack of pants, like about 45 pairs of pants at this point. It's like 3 feet high and rising. And that's how I judge my progress. And so I just, every time I get a new pair of pants, I know I'm still on the path. I kind of don't like to think about it too much. And part of it is not thinking about it too much because I'm an overthinker. It's part of how we are, what we are, any sort of ADHD addiction stuff. One of those interesting things about like, it doesn't matter if it's drugs, drinking, if it's this, if you stop, like the day that you stop, you have a lot of free time on your hands. And for some people like us, a lot of free time to overthink stuff isn't super healthy and super helpful. So I'm trying to like let this all be subconscious. And that's not the answer to your question, I guess. But the answer to your question is when it started, I started doing crazy restricting. And again, every time I tell somebody they had an opinion and they wanted to offer their advice or their, expertise from the TikToks that they saw about health or, the Instagram reels about what I should be doing and shouldn't be doing. I was doing probably unhealthy restricting. I was probably eating like 400 calories a day for quite a while, but you can't argue with results. And it was working and it was incredibly sustainable for me because what I did was I took the decisions about eating, about diet out of my hands. I was eating, like I was going through those big clamshells of like, spring greens every day. Those, I used to joke that you'd get those big, like those gigantic boxes of like spinach and greens and just get one, throw it in the fridge until it's like slime and then throw it out and go get the new one from the store. And I was flipping through those like crazy. And I was flipping through soup like crazy. And I was just kind of keeping tabs and saying, oh, I'm eating 400, 500 calories a day. And that was sustainable for a long time and it worked. And it's a little bit white knuckling, but it got the ball rolling. And then I slowly started to like loosen up a little bit and integrate more things. And so I'm not on any specific diet. I'm not doing anything crazy. I'm more or less keeping track of the calories I eat. And so maybe I'll eat a salmon today and maybe I'll eat like a pound of Brussels sprouts today. But I always just keep track of that and keep track of like the things that I know that I can eat in a healthy way or things that kind of like work around my style of overeating, like it's like, I'm sure you know this very well. If you have a pizza, you can slam a whole pizza. That'll fuck you up. Yeah. And we all can. I think anybody can. So I don't want to keep that around. But if I have a 1 pound bag of Brussels sprouts, I can eat 10 1-pound bags of Brussels sprouts and I'm going to be good. And so keeping healthy things in the house, basically cooking for myself every day and just trying to keep like a loose count on where I'm going has been my style so far.
Nice. Yeah, I think that's so smart. Like Brussels sprouts, I don't love vegetables, but Brussels sprouts is up there with one of my like I can't say I love Brussels sprouts, but I like them a lot more than I like most other vegetables. And you get a bag of Brussels sprouts, you kind of, it would be very hard to actually overeat those. You know what I mean? If you're making Brussels sprout fondue or, creamed Brussels sprouts, I could probably overeat the shit out of that. But Brussels sprouts, even cooked in a pan or steamed.
Yeah, I air fry them, man. And it's great. Like I literally take the 1 pound bag, dump it in, spritz it with some like olive oil, salt and pepper, and it's fantastic. It's like
a little crispy on the outside. Yeah,
crispy on the outside, great. Exactly. And then so like I'll do that with protein, and so that way I can work in less protein, but it's great. And also just like trying to find other things to fill up that time because, for me, food has always been kind of about boredom, kind of like it's this activity to do when I'm stressed, when I'm bored, when I'm whatever. And so one of the things I said when I started this was also, I'm not going to use food to reward myself, but I'm also not going to use it to punish myself. And so, like, if I go out and kill it on a photo shoot, if I go out and I have some great achievement, my first thought is not going to be, oh, damn, I'm going to go have like a cheat day because that's not how I want to celebrate. And on the same token, if I go out and have a terrible day or if something is going wrong, I don't want to kind of resort to it. And so that's one of those things that's like a thinking fast and slow thing where part of it is I have to create kind of a system that I'm going to rely on when I do this. And then the other part of it is when things, when there are speed bumps, when there are like curves in the road that I didn't expect, how do I improvise? And, that's been my system so far.
That's awesome. Are there things, is pizza like an off limits thing to you right now? And I'm not a forever guy, but like, is that one of the things where you're like, look, I'm staying away from pizza for the time being, or that type of food?
I mean, it's interesting because I used to kind of rely on just these things like, oh, this is a given that I'll have this every once in a while or have like a burger every once in a while. It's not off limits. I just haven't had an excuse to eat it lately. And that's part of it, like part of trying to like reprogram my brain around it, like create new paths and new habits. So like if there is an opportunity to go eat pizza, if I go to New York, I'm going to eat some pizza, but like if I go to a party and there's pizza on the table, like that's just not for me. That never was for me, but I'm just extra conscious of it. And it's been interesting, like trying to find new motivations, try to find new paths and like seeing where like my habits are going to form around what I really want. And if I crave something, so that kind of goes back to that, like not punishing myself nor rewarding myself with food. It's like, if I want some barbecue, I'm going to go get some barbecue because I want this to be a lifestyle. I want this to be sustainable. I don't want this to be some like, I did this for 6 months and then I'm out thing. So if I'm ready to have pizza, I'll eat it, but I just haven't had the opportunity or had the like craving.
Yeah. Yeah. I've had that experience where I go to a party, there's pizza on the table, and all it does is make me want to go get good pizza.
Right. Yeah. And it's kind of like, which is kind of like a drug thing sometimes. It's like, oh, everyone here is having their fun. I'm going to go back to my place and I'm going to do my drugs by myself in my way. And yeah, I kind of treat food that way sometimes too. And so, I don't really eat in front of people. I never have in my entire life. And part of like the process is to learn to be more social around it because it can be kind of like a toxic thing to eat socially. But if you're hiding it and if you're not doing it in a way that is healthy because you're sharing with everyone else, you have to ask yourself why you're not doing that either. If it's something that you have to go back home and do, it's like drinking alone, there's a Simpsons joke there, or it's like doing drugs alone. It's like everyone else is doing drugs to have fun. And then you go back to your place and you're going back to do it in a different way. And if eating is like doing a line of Coke, then I think it's time to stop and think about it.
Yeah. No, I did. I was very much a solo guy too. When did shame about eating in front of people? Do you have any idea when that started for you?
It never didn't start. As long as I can remember, that was a thing. And there's so many different reasons for it. And one of the big reasons that I kind of like ignore and never talk about is I was raised super poor. Like I was raised incredibly poor, and there were the like, eat today because you don't know if it's going to be there tomorrow thing. And that's a big problem. But there's also, if I never went out with friends and like took some allowance so that I could chip in, that wasn't there. It went through to college where like, I went to college and everyone went out to some restaurant. I'm like, oh, I'm good. Like, I'm just going to chill because I'm not trying to spend $80 on a meal because I don't have it. And so that was a component of it. But also there's, I always had that feeling because when you're big, like it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. You think they're thinking a certain way. And like, I would be sitting in a class in college and like some, skinny frat dude would walk in with a pizza and just be eating pizza in the middle of class. And it's like, dude, if I like ate a grape right now, everyone in this fucking room is going to stare at me and be like, oh, big surprise, fat kid stuff in his face, And so I just kind of never wanted to give people the opportunity to see me in that way. Like I didn't want to appear to meet that cliche, but yeah, there was a component of it that was just how I was raised. And, obviously so much of all of our bad habits go back to childhood and go back to like that stuff. So we're way too old to fucking blame our childhood though. So I'm kind of over that.
Yeah, no, I'm not even asking you to. It's just interesting to me because I have that too. One of the things that one of my guardrails is like, if I wouldn't, look, I can't say every time I eat, I'm with my wife and kids, because I'm not. It just wouldn't be true. And sometimes at work, I'm sitting in a trailer alone with my food. And like, what am I going to call my wife and kids? Please come to my work so I can eat some food. But the point is, like, if I wouldn't eat it in front of them, I know the behavior is off for me. I'm not saying you have to apply that to you, but because I share that with you. For the longest time, I wanted to eat and have my involvement with food alone. Going out to dinner with people, I would order something that I thought of as healthy so that I wouldn't be ridiculed. I would try to not finish it so that I wouldn't be ridiculed. And then I would be planning what I was going to eat as soon as I was away from these people.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, totally. And yeah, part of it is as like, I still like am like a little kid in some ways of like, I don't know what a portion looks like. So, I'm with you on that. And like, I've had so many friends over the years who are like, just come on, like, let's eat together, which is, I feel like I'm being policed, and that doesn't vibe with me. And I'm sure you hate it too. So it's like, fuck you guys. I'm going to go and, hurt myself with food today or whatever. But, yeah, definitely one of the things I keep in mind is like, if I was with people right now, if I was with the people in my life that I love, would I feel comfortable eating this in front of them? If not, then let me stop and think about this for a minute. Let me stop and think about why I'm doing this. But yeah, man, that thing where you're sitting at the restaurant and like you're drinking a glass of water and you're like, yeah, man, I'm planning for later. I'm planning to see what I'm going to do later. Yeah.
Yeah. No, yeah. And even with drugs and stuff like that, I'd be around people doing drugs. And my idea was like, I can't do drugs with them the way I want to because it might be upsetting to them,
Yeah. It's like you're having fun and I have a problem, and like I have experience with all of it, man. I'm right there with you.
Yeah, and to your earlier point, like Ozempic, whether it's being misused in Hollywood or not, I think about other drugs, and this isn't the first time I've said it, but it's like a perfect analogy for me. Like cocaine is a really worthwhile numbing agent. It
of course,
was designed to pack the nasal cavity for doing sinus surgery. Works very well.
So fun, man.
And then it's also used as something else. Like, you put it in somebody's head.
Appetite suppressant gets you going. It's
yeah. So like all of this stuff can be misused, and I would totally understand, like, if you grew up in Miami in the 80s and then you went to have your nose fixed and they were like, we're going to pack your nose with cocaine to make it numb, and then we're going to drill around in there. You'd be like, wait, no, I don't want to be a part of that. They were cutting people's heads off in motel bathrooms.
Right. Yeah. And, that's one of the things about food versus drugs is, if you want to sit down and say, I'm never going to do coke again, that's sustainable. If you're never going to smoke weed again or drink, that's one thing. But like, one of the things about this problem is you can't decide that you're never going to eat again, no matter how much you want to, no matter how much you try. So it's trying to like work around that thing and make healthy habits as opposed to like pure abstinence, which, doesn't work.
Well, it's impossible. The outcome is death. Is pretty, how long can a person go without eating? Right. I bet you and I could go longer than Twiggy, but in
I've
the grand
tried.
scheme
Yeah.
of things, it's not that long. We don't get that long. I like what you're doing, man. There's a guy named Adam Bornstein. I've had him on the podcast. He's a wonderful guy. And the way he comes at it is just like, I want to do the smallest amount possible to make some change. And I'm not saying you're doing the smallest, you're actually doing something big and hard. But like, as far as the sustainability thing goes, like, the idea, there was a point for me where it was like, okay, if I don't eat carbohydrates again, that's fine as long as I get to where I want to go. But my metric back then was a number. I wanted to see a number on a scale.
Yeah.
And all of the goals I set with those numbers, first of all, not eating carbohydrates didn't get me anywhere near the number I had set. I would lose weight, and then I would stop losing weight, and then I would be frustrated and think I was wrong and broken and bang my head against the wall. And then I'd give up and go like, well, if I'm not going to lose weight, I might as well eat carbs. Then I'd gain the weight back. But even with the number on the scale, like sitting there going like, I just need to be 200 pounds lighter and then I'll be fine. Or I just need to wear a size 32 jeans and then I'll be fine. Or any of these things, you can kill yourself to get there. And then once you've got there, what do you do with it?
Right. Yeah. I mean, there's no destination in this. That's where like my thinking about it has been a lifestyle change because, you and I are very stubborn people. Like we have incredible willpower. And so I can white knuckle it. Back when I was doing the Penn Jillette thing, I went 23 days without eating. Like that wasn't a problem for me. I mean, I was dizzy, but like I could do it. But if you're not eating carbohydrates until you get to a number, then what? Like what happens at that number? Well, you have to wake up tomorrow and live the rest of your life. It's kind of like any sort of goals or expectations that we have. When I started taking pictures, I had goals. When you started acting, you had goals. Like I said, maybe one day I'm going to be on the cover of Vogue magazine. Maybe one day I'm going to, do this or do that. And then I started meeting people who had achieved those goals, and I started achieving a lot of the goals myself. I had billboards up around America, had covers of magazines, had, big ads in big magazines and Vogue and Vanity Fair and stuff. And it was insane. But some people don't fully understand that like it's difficult to get me excited. And it's because I know that when you wake up the next morning, you still got to put on your pants to go to work, like go and shoot the cover of Vanity Fair, go win a Golden Globe, go do a movie with the biggest movie star in the world, and then wake up tomorrow and do it all over again. And that's why I don't have a scale. That's why I don't have a number in my head, because I'm not trying to get somewhere. I'm trying to stick around for a little longer. I'm trying to have an easier life. And, like for guys like you and me, our weight, our body, it's always going to be a conversation. And when people talk to me and people ask me like, do you have a goal in mind or do you have this in mind? I have to explain to them like, no, because this is a lifestyle. Like this is not summer vacation. This is not going to college even. This isn't something I do for 6 months, 4 years. This is something that I'm going to have to be conscious of the rest of my life. And you are going to be conscious of the rest of your life. But by thinking about it a little bit, we get to have our lives. We get to have our lives back, but we get to have a life that we never could have envisioned. And, I'm very optimistic about that, which is a crazy thing for me to say because I've never been optimistic about this stuff before in my life. But my body is like the least interesting thing about me. It's this thing that I think about all the time. Your body is this thing you think about all the time. But I'm a fucking cool dude. Like I've got a lot of interesting things to say. And I just want to take, that element out of the mix. I want to be able to say, you know what? I'm going to go visit my friend in France. I'm going to go for a hike up Runyon. I'm going to just jump on a plane and go do a walk in Central Park with Ethan because that sounds like fun. And my goal isn't, like I said, to like fit in some cool shirt. It's to not have to think about this thing in every decision I make in life. And that's kind of what's kept me going.
Yeah. And are you prepared for the potential or the possibility that it's still a factor no matter what you do? You know what
I,
I
you
mean?
know, I mean, I am, and that's a great segue. So, like, we always have these conversations at an interesting crossroads, and um, I just last week went to see a doctor. So, um, I have a bunch of friends who are, they love me deeply and they're invested in my life and what's going on, which is amazing. It's so incredible to have a support network. And one of my friends was convincing me to go see a therapist because, why not? It's LA. And I think we all need some help. So walked in, and before she said anything, before the therapist like was, tinkering with my noodle, she was like, "What the fuck is wrong with your leg, dude?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She's like, "You just limped in." I'm like, "Oh yeah, that's this thing I do." So the therapist, this is LA. She's like, "Here's the best doc in the country. Go talk to him." I go in last week and walked into an orthopedist for the first time in my life, knowing that so my weight, we've talked about this before. And back when we were in the gym together with Eric, this was a big issue. I've
Yeah.
had a fucked up leg for about a decade, and it's obviously been a problem. It's obviously, slowed my progress. It's everything I do, everywhere I go, it's an issue. So
Well, I
walk
remember
in.
it limited your mobility. It was like you were fine but for your knee.
Exactly. And that becomes a big issue when you want to be healthy, you want to exercise, you want to focus on fitness, you want to be able to hike run in or just go and, hit the recumbent bike, and that's a problem. But, same thing. If I want to go and walk through Kyoto with a friend, or if I want to go and walk through Central Park with you, it's a factor. And if I want to go and do a lot of work, if I want to go and do jobs, it's kind of like the weight. It was always on the table. So I've been through so many hoops, and I saw like a specialist in 2017 who's like supposedly the best knee guy in, at Cedars, and he didn't say anything. And I've been to a biomechanic, which is like an expensive way of saying a physical therapist. And I've been to a physical therapist, and I've been to all these people, and, they have me doing exercises and everyone's trying something else. And so finally I go see this orthopedist last week and run a couple x-rays. The guy comes in and he looks at me for literally 10 seconds. And he's like, "Well, you need a new hip, dude." I'm like,
Whoa.
I was like, "What the fuck, man?" It knocked me over. And I was like, "What?" And he's like, "Yeah, man, like your left hip is obliterated. You have catastrophic end stage arthritis. You have the hip of a 75-year-old man. And basically you're fucked, man." Like, he didn't say it that way, but he said it that way. And he was like, "I wish there was a shot I could give you. I wish there was a pill I could give you. I wish there was something we could do." He's like, this ship sailed. And I'm like, wow. Because I was not ready for that. A bunch of people told me to go see the doctor, and I'm not great with self-care, which you can, probably understand. And so I walked in and I was like, I knew it was going to be something. I knew it was going to be big, but like, I just was not ready for that. And, this guy is one of the foremost experts. And he started to explain to me like what was going on and what that looked like. And I was like, wow, this is horrible, but at the same time, like a little bit validating, like a little bit
The
vindicating.
explanation feels good,
Right.
right? Like,
And
okay,
yeah,
that
like I'm like,
explains
it's
stuff.
like a fucking tidal wave hit me, because I was like, you know what? Like, I've had so many people over the years tell me, "Dude, just go get some hokas, or just, go walk around the neighborhood, go hike up Runyon, go do this, talk to my guy, talk to my biomechanic, talk to my, go hit the gym, just get on the bike."
By the
And,
way, I love that there's such a thing in Los Angeles as a biomechanic. That is
you
fucking
know,
hilarious, dude.
well, who set me up with that guy?
Who, Mike?
Our mutual friend. Yep. And so, of course, no, but he's amazing, and the dude's amazing. But what that dude doesn't have is an MRI or an X-ray to see in. And this guy told me, he's like, "Your hip, he's like, it's supposed to be a golf ball, and it's a flat surface." He's like, "Your hip is so far gone that your left leg is 8 millimeters shorter than your right leg because you've ground it to dust." So basically, that's why I've been teeter tottering for years and years. And he's telling me this, but like, again, I'm not Mr. Told you so, but it makes me feel a little bit validated at all of the people who have been in these like Monday morning quarterbacks of how I could just fix myself. And like makes me feel a little validated that I I did try a lot of stuff and I wasn't working. And, it's like it doesn't matter if I'm 400 pounds or 100 pounds. Like if you're a Mack truck or if you're a Suzuki Samurai, if you have a flat tire, you ain't driving. And
Right.
so like that was a big revelation for me. And so at the same time, like there's just a million thoughts going through my head. And I was interested and I've never had surgery and I was kind of scared. And, I was like on a fact finding mission with this guy and I was like, okay, man, like, so tell me, like, what does it look like on the other side of this? And he was like, well, let me tell you. He's like, every day after you get this, you'll wish you got it 10 years earlier. You're going to sing, you're going to dance, you're going to run, you're going to have your life back. And, like I'm going to modify that and say, I'm going to have a life that I never had. Because
Do you just need one
just
or
one. Yeah,
both?
it's my left. No, it's just my left. And I was, there's, the Charlie Brown with Lucy, like kind of meme where she goes and pulls the football out of the last second. He's telling me this and I'm kind of getting optimistic. And then he's got this look on his face. And he's like, well, and I was like, what? And this guy's got amazing bedside manner and he's obviously an expert. And he kind of gets like a little fidgety. He's like, well, I'm like, doc, I'm a big boy. Just fucking talk to me like an adult man. He's like, well, there's a weight limit on these things. I was like, yes. And he's like, and you're probably there. And so like, we're going to talk with this other doctor because he's an expert in it. And essentially, there are obviously complications when you're big, but there's only so much weight you can put on this prosthetic. And, there's only so much weight you can do once you, modify your body. And so I was, I explained to him, I was like, well, I've lost 150 pounds in the past 6 months. He's like, that's amazing. Just keep going because we're going to get you in here. We're going to get you taken care of. But like, this is a new lifestyle for you. And I'm at the same time very excited and I'm trying to like be hopeful about it. And I'm starting to think about all these things that I've been robbed of for so long. For 10 years, I haven't been able to do so many things. I haven't had a normal life. And, it's like, I'm not trying to go skydiving. I'm not trying to hike Mount Everest. I want to like get out of bed and not be in pain. I want to get up off of the couch and not look like I'm going to fall over or feel like I'm going to fall over, and like, it's those little things that people take for granted that all of a sudden I've kind of like already taken off the plate. Like I took those out of my mind and I didn't know I was ever going to have those back. And I'm really excited and hopeful, but this is kind of like where I want to bring it back to the health and the, your space is it's fucking terrifying, man. Like,
Yeah.
this and I know this, like our weight, which is like drugs, like anything else, it's like a gun on the table. You can always reach for it. And you've yo-yoed, I've yo-yoed. We've all got a path. But like, if I do this thing, there's a ceiling there. And it's not like it's gone because yeah, I could fuck it up. Like I could blow through it and I could really ruin my life in a big way if I want to. But if I want to get this, if I want to be sustainable, if I want to be able to like have this surgery and not ruin it, I'm basically closing a door on being a certain size.
Yeah.
And I don't want to, like if I told that to anyone, all of my skinny friends, all my normal friends, they're stoked. They're like, oh my God, this is amazing. You'll never go back. And I'm like,
hold on.
Hold on. Wait a second, because I am an expert at fucking up my life. Like I am an expert at ruining my life. I don't need any help tripping over my shoelaces. They are right there. They're ready for me to fall on my face. And so it's crazy. It's crazy to think that I could do this thing that could change my life forever, give me a life that I haven't had for a long time. But with it comes a responsibility that I've never had. And with it comes the idea that like, I'm not going to go back. And at the same time, it's going to give me new options. If I lost this much weight, not doing cardio, not being able to do normal exercise, and then I get it and all of a sudden I can, of course, in theory, I'm going to be able to do more. Of course, in theory, I'm going to keep going down. But, as you and I know, life throws you a curveball sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, like my heart rate is up just imagining the stress of that position because it is a two-sided knife there, right? Like
Exactly.
because I've been in that situation where you're like, no, I'm going to take on the burden of this responsibility, and that will be the motivating factor. And I can throw that away. I can fuck that up. And I have a number of
Oh yeah.
times where you're like, wait, even given the circumstances, I blew it. So that's very real. But I also think like, you don't the absolute wrong thing to do, I think, is to just go like, well, the potential to fuck it up is there, so I'm not even going to do it. Do you know what I mean? Like, to me,
Of course.
that's just defeat and apathy, and like, don't do that.
Oh no, if I fuck it up, it's gonna be magnificently. Like if I
Right,
fuck it up, I'm
right,
going out like stars and stripes. So
yeah, fucking go
I
big.
go
Like,
big or go home, and yeah, I'm gonna do it. And so like I haven't told anyone. Like this all happened last week. This is all very fresh to me. But like I'm here telling you because I need accountability from everybody. I need to be accountable mostly to myself. But like of all the things I'm not afraid of a fucking challenge. Like you know, if you ask me to
okay,
climb Mount Everest, I don't want to do it, but I'm gonna do it.
well, here's all I say. Like, I agree and think the most sustainable long-term approach to weight loss is lifestyle change, is dealing with the compulsions and habits we've built up around food and trying to figure that out versus like just do a diet which is intentionally short term, right?
Right.
However, I don't see anything wrong with going like, I'm making these changes. I'm aware of what the rest of my life has to look like. But in the short term, I want to get this surgery and I have to lose weight. So, like, what's the number you have to lose? And what's the route that gets you there? Because scheduling stuff like this isn't like, I made it. Can I pop in next week?
Well, and yeah, so like I did a really like tertiary just look at the internet because I don't like to look it up, and I'm not trying to be a Google MD. I'm gonna wait and talk to the other doctor to make sure see what his number is, and it's kind of like a ladder. Like a ladder says it's weight limited for 200, but really you can that's for the lawyers. That's not for us.
I know that's not true. I know a guy who got a double hip replacement and he weighs more than 200 pounds.
Right. Yeah. Well, so
Like,
the number for this is like a 220 to 275 maybe. And then there's other complications when you're big, does it get infected? When you go under, there's like lots of little issues around it.
sure.
But the most encouraging thing is, when I sat down to talk with you 6 months ago, I didn't know why I was doing this. Like I said, I wasn't doing it to meet a girl. I wasn't doing it so I could go on Tatsu and Magic Mountain. I wasn't doing it so that I could get a cool new pair of jeans. It was just fuck it. Like I just said, I'm going to go do this and I want to try something different. And now when I go and meet with that doctor, I don't know what the number is, but I know I'm 150 pounds closer than I was 6 months ago.
Right.
And so like, I'm stoked, man. Like I'm not going to like, open up the astrology app and start giving that all the credit, but whatever drove me to do this, like sometimes you don't know why you do these things or what the purpose is. Sometimes you put a little carrot out in front of you and that gets you there. But like that, I started doing this other thing to prepare me for this news and this possibility in a new life. I'm so encouraged and I'm so excited that like I could have this new different life, and whatever the complications are that arise, they're going to happen. I'm just going to deal with it because I'm not waiting around anymore. Like I want my life back, but it's not even that I want my life back. I want the life that I always wish I had. And that's more important to me than a pizza. That's more important to me than some chili cheese fries or whatever.
Yeah. No. I think that's beautiful, and I utterly understand you. It is really. I don't like to run anywhere, but like the fact that I can, if I'm late for a plane, and my wife like loves to be the last person on a plane and doesn't mind the
Right.
anxiety of like almost missing it. I know I can do that, and I know that there was a time where I couldn't do that, and that is a huge win for me. Like I'm like I can celebrate that, and I can get onto the plane huffing and puffing and go like, that's not going to ruin my day. whereas just having to rush in an airport used to ruin my day.
Well, I mean that you can, you know, that's so the other thing is like, again, I haven't done a ton of research, but you can't do a ton of high impact. Like, I don't know how much I can run, but once you have a hip replacement, you can't run a lot, but you can run a little bit. And, you know, I was talking with a friend about this and I'm like, you know, I'm never going to be able to run a marathon. He's like, who the fuck are you kidding, dude? You've
Right.
never run a marathon in your life. You never want to. I don't want to. Nobody wants to. Like, only assholes want to run marathons. So, like, you need to,
Listen, I could not run a marathon. There's
dude,
no way.
I couldn't, yeah. Like the Miami airport is the closest to a marathon I ever want to be. It's a big ass airport, but it's one of those things where, yeah, like you can rush to get on the plane if you need to. And more importantly, once you get there, like, yeah, you just, you know, that anxiety you just talked about, when you're big, you know, people don't understand. You have to be the first, like, you don't want to be sitting in that chair very long. You don't want to watch 200 people, you know, walk past you going back to steerage, but you have to be in that chair because you have a lot going on in your head, and taking, you know, exchanging some of these worries for some of these new worries is what it is. Because, you know, one of the things that we talked about last time was, you know, you have this one problem, I have this one problem, and losing weight isn't going to fix my problems. It's not going to make me a millionaire. It's not going to, you know, find me a supermodel wife. It's not going to change everything, but it might make my knees, you know, hurt a little less. Well, it turns out it wasn't my knees, it was my hip. But once I get my hip taken care of, it's not going to make me a millionaire. It's not going to give me a supermodel wife. It's not going to change my life overnight, but it's one less thing to think about. And if it means getting on that plane and being okay being the last person, because I have the same friends, like everybody I know is, you know, the last person on the plane, because they don't mind it, because it's not going through their head, because they don't have that anxiety that you and I have about food, about fitting into spaces, you know, that we've had our entire lives. But if I can imagine a world or a life where I can walk onto a plane and not have that dread, or like a week of dread leading up to it, like wondering who's going to be sitting next to me and like all that stuff. I mean, talk about a gift.
Yeah. No, it's huge, man. It's really huge. And just going on walks. I remember Mike talking about, listen, I've been going on these walks with people, and it's amazing. Just walking around is amazing. And I feel that I have a freedom because I used to be so like going on a walk used to be like somebody saying, you know, do you want to go do your taxes or something? Like it was like such a thing that was the worst. It was like it made me nauseous, the idea of going on a walk. And now I love it, and I'm going on walks with strangers, just like, hey, you guys want to meet up and go on a walk? And it's so awesome. Um, and I remember Mike wanting us to go on a walk, and you're like, I can't do it. My legs are not good. You could do it now if you do this.
Yeah. And, you know, it's more than taxes. It's just like, it's off the table, and it's been off the table for a long time. So long that I kind of like forget about it. But just having it be a thing where if someone says, let's go, you know, let's go shopping at the Grove, like, let's go see a movie, and you don't have to spend all day worrying or spend all day thinking about it, because it's one of those things where like, you can't also explain to people because, one, they can't understand, and they're going to say, oh, don't worry. No, we love you the way you are. No, we don't mind. That doesn't help. You know, that doesn't help. I know that doesn't help, because that just compounds the shame, the anxiety, and all that stuff. But you can't expect anyone else to understand that burden. And then you start making excuses, and now like you're pushing people away. And like so much of this is like pushing people away to protect yourself from these things about your life, and trying to address it is welcoming them back in, and then, you know, having to explain like, hey, I wasn't being a dick. I didn't cancel on you because I'm a jerk. I canceled on you because like emotionally and physically I was incapable of going to, you know, shop for Christmas gifts with you that day, or go see a movie with you, or just go up to Runyon or whatever. And it's difficult for us, and it's difficult for other people to understand. And so you have to kind of like ask for people to be patient with you and people to be understanding. But when you have like a solution in mind, or if you have a goal in mind, it's great. And, you know, like one of the funny things, so when I saw the doctor, you know, he's telling me this and he's like, yeah, man, like you have your whole life ahead of you. And I was like, oh, I don't know, man. I'll think about it. He's like, and he looked at me, he's like, think about what? I'm like, well, I'll think about it. It's like, there's nothing to think about. Like, you have to do this. Like, you could have done it yesterday, you can do it today, or you can do it in 10 years, but it's never getting better. There is no solution other than this.
And then really it's only getting worse.
Well, and that's the problem. It's like, well, it's rippling into like, I'm putting so much extra stress on my right. It's like right now my left is gone. But if I push this off longer, I mean, everything gets worse. The system just starts to shut down because the rest of my body's compensating, my back, my right side, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, he looked at me and kind of like had this confused look. He's like, but I've got this one, like, what I don't understand is you must be in excruciating pain. I'm like, yeah. He's like, but it's chronic, persistent pain. I'm like, uh-huh. He's like, but how do you deal with it? I'm like, yeah, exactly. And he's like, he's like, I have people come in here after a day of this pain, after a week of this pain, and it's unbearable. And I'm like, uh-huh. And he's like, but you've been this way for 10 years. I'm like, what do you want me to tell you, doc? Like, I'm really fucking stubborn. Like I've lived with this pain and I've rather than address this thing, I've lived with this insane amount of stress and of suffering for so long that you forget that that's not reality, that because it becomes your new reality, like that's how you are. And the idea that, one of the hardest things about changing, if it's losing weight, if it's getting off drugs, if it's changing your career, if it's getting, doing this thing, getting a surgery or something, is you lose track of what life is supposed to look like, because whatever your daily life is, after a certain amount of time, that's just your reality. And right now, my reality is this. And I almost can't even envision a reality where I don't have to think about standing up, or I don't have to think about that stress. And like I said, I'm optimistic, but it's also fucking terrifying.
Yeah. Dude, I remember there are mornings where I'll wake up and my legs and my feet will be sore, and I'll have the thought, this was just like it used to be every day. And then I'll really, really try to be honest with myself, and it's not even close. It's not even close.
I mean, and that's such like a beautiful thing, because it's like, man, like you can say my life has got so much better that I can't even remember how much pain I used to be in the daily, and like, that's an incredible thing.
No, but I used to take opiates. I think I convinced myself at one point that they were like antidepressants for me, but really my initial love for them was that they took pain away. Like,
well, yeah, pain is fucking depressing, bud. And so yeah, like they kind of are an antidepressant, but exactly. And like, thank God for small miracles, like in all of this, like that I never got addicted to opiates, because that was on the table. That could have been an option considering how much pain I've been in. But yeah, like the idea that like there's going to be a period where I'm going to, it's like anything else, like, oh my God, like I got this new car and this new car is amazing and it has all these cool new things. And then eventually it just becomes like the car that you're driving in traffic and it's whatever. And like the idea that one day I could forget that this is something that I struggle with every day. I mean, it's unbelievable to me right now. I can't even kind of fathom it, but like, I'm excited.
Yeah.
And so, but again, it's like with everything, it comes with great responsibility, because, like I sent you that, you and Mike, that picture, like I have a stack of, 45 pairs of pants I've gone through in the past 6 months, which is insane. And I want to throw them away. And like last night I was going through these old shirts and stuff. And I was like, oh damn, like I blew through these. Like I could wear these at one point and then I got too big to wear them. And now I'm too small to wear them. And I was like, part of me feels like, in Trading Places, like with Eddie Murphy, there's that scene where they're like, hey, what should we do with his clothes? Well, have him clean, so when he's back on the street, he'll have something to wear. Like part of me, like, almost wants to keep this around, because I always feel like one day I'm going to be back on the streets and I'm still going to need this fucking fat pair of pants. But then I look at this stuff and I look at this clothes, like, I just put on a shirt last night that I wore in 2007. And I was like excited about the fact that I fit into it. And I'm like, oh, I need to keep this. And I was like, I never wanted to wear this. Do you remember that era? It's the Mike era. It's like they're like going out with Leo to fucking Ledoux and to Teddy's era of LA. And I'm like, I've hated the douchebags who wore these shirts. I never wore it then. I'm never wearing it in the future. And like, does this thing fit in my future? It absolutely does not, because it barely fit in my past. And so like, trying to be more bold about that, because as people, like, we're so familiar with weighing the risk of change, and like we get all caught up in our head about like, oh, I don't want to take this risk, I don't want to make this change because this might happen. But like, it's very easy to overlook the risk of not doing anything. And
Yeah.
we think that not doing anything is safe, but like not doing anything is just in the, it's in a car that's just like slowly rolling down a hill.
Yeah. It is. There's a lot of vulnerability in that too, because we know that we have the power to throw this all away,
Right.
and then we've and it's almost embarrassing to ourselves, and if anybody else noticed, and that we have to go out and reaccumulate all the stuff we got rid of. It's all a risk. But I think that, like, this is what I'm envious of people like Elon Musk, and not that I think he's the greatest guy, but I do respect his ability to, like, just keep going. Do you know what I mean? Despite
Sure.
what the media or the government or whoever thinks, he just keeps going. He's just keeps doing his thing. And there's something like, man, nothing can touch that guy. Whereas I'm myself in my way more than anyone else. You know what I mean? I don't have the government after me or major news
Yeah. And,
organizations that
and
hate
guys like you
me.
and me, we don't need any help like getting in
Right.
our way,
Right. I'm just there all the
Yeah,
time, stopping myself.
exactly.
I have an
Yeah. I
idea.
don't need
No,
any
don't do
help
that.
fucking up my life. I
Right.
am more than able. As a matter of fact, I am an expert at fucking up my life.
Yeah.
But, like, I also think that, for people like you and me, that's what gives us the willpower to overcome it. Because if I like the power of knowing that I could fuck it all up, but that also, if you take that and flip that coin, it's like, well, I have the power to manage it all too. Like, I get to decide, because, like, again, I know it's a really dark analogy, but it's like, I've got a gun on the table and I can pick it up anytime I want, like, and if I want to throw my life away, you can wake up every day of your life and decide that today is the day you're going to throw your life away, or that today's your day you're going to stop caring or give up. But keeping that option is strangely kind of like helpful, because it keeps someone like me or someone like you kind of going, knowing that we're in control.
Yeah. Yeah, it really does. I mean, and that's maybe the only thing we're in control of, right? At the end of the day.
Right. Yeah.
That's it.
And yeah, knowing that we're in control of destruction lets us be in control of positivity and of being of service and of being in a community. And like, knowing that you could destroy it all lets you go on walks and lets you be like this gigantic force for other people who need help in the world. And, it takes a little bit of a big personality, which is scary for a lot of people. But, if you can take all that energy and focus it into something healthy and helpful, if you can take all that energy and know that your family is the reason that you're going to get up and you're going to eat the way that you want to eat, or you have a group of people who are going to come for a walk, and you know that no matter what you do on Saturday night, Sunday morning, you have to be up to be there for your people, it's important to have those commitments. And if we lose track of them, then, we lose track of ourselves a little bit. And, in all of this, with all this new information that I've been getting and this new life that I've been kind of like steering into, like a couple months ago, I was sitting with a friend, and she's been through a lot of life, and she's an amazing friend and very smart. And I was explaining to her, I'm like, damn, like I'm kind of bummed. Before I knew about the hip, like I still knew my leg was fucked up, and I was in the middle of seeing like the biomechanic and the physical therapist and everything. And I was like, like if I address this, I'm just so sad that the best years of my life are behind me. Like I squandered, these really important years of my life. And she looked at me and she said, well, then they weren't the best years of your life. And I was like, damn, like that's so simple, but it fucking hit me like a baseball bat. I'm like, yeah. And she's like, yeah. And she's older than me. She's, whatever. And she was like, yeah, you have so much life ahead of you. And so if those years weren't great to you, they weren't the best, and you still have an amazing life ahead of you. And like, I talked to her last night actually, and I mentioned this to her, and she was so excited. And she was like, I am so excited to see where you go in this world because of the decisions you're making to take your life into your own hands right now. And again, that's powerful. And, that's so motivating.
I really do think that that's a great point, because I think that we can live without intention and purpose. And it's very easy to exist in the world and just move through it, right? We're moving through it no matter what. So I wake up, I do what I did yesterday. I'm just repeating these same steps. But to have a change, right? To work towards the best years of your life, that takes intention. That takes a decision. That takes responsibility. And there's no judgment on people who aren't doing that. That's, I think
everyone wakes up every day and they're doing their best. Like, I don't care who it is or what they did today. Whatever you did today is your best, because no one would choose to do anything less than that. So yeah, like we've all been there. I've been there.
Yeah. And to actually step onto a different path, that's just a choice that you make in that moment, And I do think that making a choice that you see that benefits you does, after many steps, get easier. I really do,
And yeah, and again, it's always there. There's always another path to go on. And I find a lot of strength and a lot of hope in knowing that there are different paths to try out, and that this is the life that we get to lead. We are blessed that we get to experience all of this. And you and I have had these experiences as most people will never understand, for good and for bad. But I am so happy that I get to taste the entire variety of life, and that's so incredible to me, because in the middle of this, when I started to make changes and some people close to me started to notice, this one friend pulled me aside and she was like, I just don't understand. She was like, did you give up? What happened? What went on? Because she didn't really know me before, when I was smaller, and she met me when I was at my probably worst. And, that hurt. Hearing, did you give up? That's right in the breadbasket. That hurts. And I was like, no, I didn't give up, but I did lose myself. I think I lost myself for a little bit, and I lost track of what's important to me. And I lost track of the things. And like I said earlier, my body is the least interesting thing about me. I've got so many fucking fun and interesting things I want to do in this world, and so many great things I get to do. But I like going out to dance. I like being in situations. I like being great at my job. I like creating art. I want to see the world. And when I took those things off the table, when I took those things out of the rotation as options, I lost myself a little bit. And so when I'm looking for motivation now, I just realize I'm finding myself again, and I'm finding those things that drove me to try to be better today, whatever that means.
Yeah, that's amazing. Steven, thank you so much. This is beautiful. I'm excited for you. I can't wait to hear. We got to do another check-in in a few months to see how we're progressing. Thank you.
Well, and yeah, and I've also joked, we have to at some point do our little Gluttony After Dark podcast, where we talk about other stuff, because at some point we're going to both have this fixed, and then we got plenty to talk about.
We got lots to talk about. We'll talk about Hollywood in the 90s and today.
We'll talk about these kids today. We got a thing or two to teach them.
That's right. Thanks,
love you, brother.
Dude. You too.
Have a good one.